For plebs, by plebs, dropping the Bitcoin-only signal. Pleb Underground. Welcome everyone to the Pleb Underground.
Pleb Underground, episode 65. It's recorded, but I'm still alive. Sorry I missed episode 64. Weekly drops, but they still want more. Serve up another, they want to be dosed. Hopium addicts await each post. We preach caution, not hopium dealers. Exchanges all shunned. Don't put out feelers. We've the best audience, but I'm not simping. They're not a audience, so we're not pimping. Can't rug our listeners, don't worry about the blowback. You can take my words, but I got my flow back. Beautiful pictures, not disposable. Kodak, cut off connections, but they'll grow back. Bitcoin has helped me to look younger. Cut down on parties, less bunga bunga. Bitcoin can't eradicate world hunger. It's not rat poison either. RIP Munger. Low time preference is a long-term vision, so take your time but make a decision. One cut rhyme, can't fake an incision. Accurate prime, can't forsake the precision. Might be out in the weeds, but I'm still rhyming sober. I'm about what I need, better timing than October. Front the lines on the lightning, so you can deal with the expenses. Want to see some infighting? Check out what the X pen says. In a mess, but not adrift like a sailor. Don't dress too swift, won't fit like a tailor. Touch down in a shed, but not like Montana. Can't live like Ted, be a technological planner. New liquidity flowing in, money's fluid. Fuck taproot wizards, though their CTO is a druid. I love doing things for others. I'm not selfish. Never been a fishmonger. Can't sell fish. Clear-minded, not full of thoughts that harrow. Working out all the time, so not wide nor narrow. Shirking distractions, on target like an arrow. Holding cards to my chest, can't reveal tarot. Get after the bone, gotta let things marrow. Please use cold storage, nunchuck, sparrow. Flow in your ear like an AirPod. Go in all clear, pull your hair prod. You from all angles, we're like quantum entangles. Be the freak in my sheets, each week in my beats. Some like it rough, some like it gentle. Be the layer on top, be experimental. I never write a chorus, it's always more verses. Competing against myself, not player verses. GM, go fuck yourself. Our daily curses. We'll say it each day till we roll in hearses. Doom scrollers, sharing, liking. Not outdoorsy, only the Fed is hiking. Got no heroes, I am miking. Welcome back, we got Erik the Viking.
That was amazing. That was straight fire. Absolutely loved it. And that's right, guys. Welcome back to the Pleb Underground. Joining us today, we've got special guest, fellow Bitcoiner and pleb, and the co-founder of rsmc.tech, Erik the Viking. Erik, thank you so much. Or HoDling Erik, as I know you. What's too catchy?
Thank you for having me, guys.
rsmc.tech is you need some marketing, guys.
I think it's good. Erik, thank you so much for joining us on the Pleb Underground.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here, guys.
Very cool. It's long overdue. Dude? It's long overdue. All right. We're going to move it on over to the numbers.
Yeah, the numbers, of course, from Time Chain Stats and Time Chain Calendar, and now sponsored by BTC Pins.
The numbers are brought to you by BTC Pins. Check them out at btcpins.com. Awesome pins, stickers, and accessories made by a fellow Bitcoiner. I always like to show my collection, and you'll notice there is a brand new pin to my collection. That's right, the Pleb Underground pin. BTC Pins is going to be carrying it very soon. Don't forget to use the code PlebUnderground for 5% off at btcpins.com. At the time of this recording, the block height is 819,315. The Bitcoin fiat exchange, 38,811.66 cents. Total public lightning capacity, 5,421.7. Moscow time, 2576. Fastest fee. Oh gosh, Erik, you're gonna have to address this a little bit later on.
45 fucking shitcoiners, man.
Erik is not a shitcoiner. 45 sats per VByte, and of course, our chain rewrite days is 657. Those are the uneventful numbers, but I think there's a whole bunch of people that are very happy right now in Bitcoin.
I mean, I do like the just the chart of the hash rate, right? Hash rate just is steadily climbing. Obviously, you know, there's some oscillation, right? But it is is this because the miners know something we don't, or is it because they're finding other ways to make money? Are they you know, the more I hear they're getting paid by, you know, electricity grids, you know, to help balance the grid there, you know, in certain places. But is mining getting more centralized?
Well, Erik, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, is mining getting more centralized is a good question, I think. On top of that, I believe that a lot of this like delayed hash rate just been adding to the network because the machines just been delivered, right? There's always this big gap between like ordering and getting those machines. And since the last bull run and Bitcoin has really shown what it can do, I think there's just like this delay, you know, in hash rate or hash rate deployment. So I think that's what we're witnessing right now.
We're going to talk about this a little bit more in the Hopium because I feel like all of a sudden there's this new or renewed buzz around solo miners, right? Like all of a sudden these little machines can actually churn out some pretty decent hash power. Anyways, we're gonna switch topics though for the numbers. Let's dive into this. Okay, this may not seem numbers related, but follow along with me. Okay, we've got this retweet here from Greg. Okay, he retweeted Nick Can't Mine. New coordinated Bitcoin FUD dropping. That's right. Bitcoin uses too much water. And this is 2023, guys. All right. So somehow the environmental, the ESG push did not work out very well. Apparently now all of a sudden we're stealing people's water. We're just taking it away from them. And before we discuss this is a tweet from Sly Roundabout Goomba, fellow Bitcoiner. And this is why I'm bringing this up, because that tweet I just showed you about the water was 2023. And this is what he said. Then they fight you. Ended in like 2013. We've just been winning harder and harder since then. Okay, I can get that optimistic take. But let me ask you this, Erik. Do you really think, like, do you believe that the then they fight you stage ended in 2013 when we're reading fresh new FUD that apparently now Bitcoin's drying up the pools? I mean, it just, to me, like, I feel like we've been in the then they fight you stage since I'd probably say 2019. That's when I really started to feel it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, they're probably just, I mean, his take is probably delaying the inevitable, right? Like they gave up or they lost the fight in 2013 and now just delaying basically what would happen to a free market, right? Much earlier. Yeah. So I can get that take, but I believe they're fighting as hard tooth and nail right now as they can with everything. You know, they will their ill mind into reality with like every new decision they make. So I think like they're fighting it tooth and nail.
I totally agree. I definitely don't think we've seen, I don't even think we've seen the peak of the then they fight you stage. Walton, what are your thoughts on this?
It's just beginning, right? It's I mean, I think there's going to be some weird laws that happen over the next 5-10 years with regards to countries not necessarily banning Bitcoin, but they might, you know, it's like you, I don't know, banning, trying to force custodianship, right? Like kind of backdoor 6102. Oh, you know, or if you want to withdraw from an exchange, it has to be to a whitelisted custodian or you know, these sorts of things. I think today it was just announced that Japan are planning to tax Bitcoin 110%. So you're going to pay 100% to Japan, and then just because you try to do something positive for the next generation, they're going to then fuck over your kids and take 10% off them as well. Like, it's disgusting. But I think this is, you know, this is the decade of where jurisdictional arbitrage starts playing out, right? Where Bitcoiners start mobilizing and moving to friendlier jurisdictions. I don't think everyone's going to go to El Salvador. I think I don't know, the pictures I've seen there, it's like, it's not, I don't even think it looks like that nice a holiday destination. Sorry, potato. You know, like, but there are going to be lots of developments. There are going to be Bitcoin is starting to get up, pack up, and go, and look at where maybe they can make a.
Very interesting, excuse me, what you said about El Salvador, because today somebody shared a tweet with me of essentially a message about how visiting El Salvador and living there are two different things, right? And I mean, to a certain extent, that's probably true of many places, right? Like when you're a tourist somewhere, you're gonna see all, like for the most part, you're gonna see the nicest things, you're gonna see the most entertaining things. But when you're living there permanently, it's maybe a bit of a different story, you know? So yeah, the whole thing about Japan though, with the taxing the inheritance 110%. So how can they actually enforce that? Like I saw that tweet from Humble this morning, and I wrote back and I was like, you know what? I kind of think this is FUD. Because how can they really? So they're essentially banking on people not taking self-custody to be able to enforce that. Because realistically, if you do take self-custody, I mean, number one, how could they even prove that that's your Bitcoin, right? Just for the sake of argument, if you connect through a VPN, if you connect your wallet, if you created everything through a VPN, it never went through any IP addresses that show it's from Japan or anything like that, to a certain extent, they're going to have a pretty difficult time to prove that that's your Bitcoin, you're the owner of that wallet, right? I don't know. I just, to me, it just sounds like noise for the sake of noise.
What about though that there's, I don't know, some sort of international effort to try and identify Bitcoiners,
yes.
And by creating punitive policies, they can try and identify them by the fact that they decide to leave the country, by the fact they decide to go live somewhere else. I don't know.
I think we're proving the case for the fact that we're in the then they fight you stage and it hasn't ended. I mean, this is literally, this conversation is happening because then they fight you. So
it's just getting going, right? Like it's all very well saying, oh, you can't take Bitcoin off me, but when, I don't know, when the state's violence is on top of you, I don't know. See how things go.
Yeah, man. Many people fold, right? We're not, like, it's like not every single person's a superhuman. Not everybody is willing to, to go to jail for what they believe necessarily. Not everybody, right? Like there is a reason there's a reason that we have governments in place and that we have a whole bunch of people that just essentially, do what they're told, right? Like we all follow rules. So to a certain extent, yes, that's exactly it. When the state comes down and it enforces violence, kind of hosed. Anyways. All right, we're going to switch topic. We're going to switch gears, all right, for the numbers. Go to something a little more positive, a little more maybe positive. We'll see. We'll see what you guys think. Next little tweet for the numbers. This is a tweet from @AP_Abacus. Update on the SEC. That's right. We're never going to stop talking about these ETFs until they get approved or permanently denied or whatever. Anyways, SEC meetings with spot Bitcoin ETF issuers have been voluminous. Did I pronounce that right? Voluminous? I don't know.
Yeah, voluminous.
Yeah. Thank you. That's better flow. All right. Voluminous. So here we go. SEC source, 99% approval and all at once. Dotted I's and crossed T's across all applications. Grayscale doing all it can to be first. Conversion based on court decision. Okay. So the magic number there is 99% all at once. I mean, look, it's interesting.
Works every time, 70% of the time.
I think it's 60% of the time it works every time. You were close. You're the numbers guy. But like, no, look, the ETF thing, it's such a double-edged sword because at the same time, right? Like, it's legacy money. It's no surprise, right? It's everybody knows these people, they are going to seek alpha. If there is a game in town that they can go and seek alpha from, they are definitely going to join it. And depending on how much influence they can sway in that, well, they can pretty much take it over. And it's kind of what I'm seeing, right? Like the legacy finance system is here in crypto and they're getting ready. And yeah, I'd be very surprised if they don't approve the ETF for the January 10th date, because that is pretty much the next date that we have. But I'll say this, if they don't approve it for the January 10th date, we are going to get an insane stacking opportunity, because I believe that there's a lot of weak hands in the market right now, and they're essentially all just waiting on the ETF. That's what I believe. Like, there's people like us, right, who buy and hold Bitcoin, who believe in having a censorship-resistant ledger, who believe in self-sovereignty and all that stuff. And then there's a whole bunch of other people in Bitcoin that are really just seeking alpha, even if it's short-term. What are you guys' thoughts? Is everybody bored with the ETF at this point? I'm pretty bored. I pretty much just bring it up because it's essentially to keep people up to date as to what's coming out. But at this point, I'm so burnt on the ETF.
Paper Bitcoin is an attack on Bitcoin. It's a custodial push. I say the same thing every week on this.
I mean, that's pretty much it, right? Eric, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, totally agree. It's like, it shouldn't interest you as an individual how the ETF is progressing, because you should buy Bitcoin and not like some vehicle that lets somebody else control your Bitcoin.
Exactly. It isn't real Bitcoin. It's, they're just creating a financial product for people who essentially want to have exposure to Bitcoin, which just sounds like the traditional banking system. Anyways, guys, let us know what you think. Put it in the comments. You excited about the ETF? You bored? Or you burnt out by it? Guys, that wraps up the numbers, and we are going to move it on over to the Fireside Chat. The Fireside Chat is brought to you by CypherSafe. We keep hearing one horror story after another. Guys, you need to store your seed in somewhere that is virtually indestructible. Make sure you go take a look at the Cypher Grid. Store your seed in the Cypher Grid. Comes with this awesome little punch tool, and that is at CypherSafe.io. If you appreciate fine Bitcoin art, check out the Bitcoin Rouleau Triangle. 16 ounces of solid titanium made by a Bitcoiner for fellow Bitcoiners. That is the Bitcoin Rouleau Triangle at CypherSafe.io. Welcome back, everyone. This might become a very spicy fireside chat. So let's dive into it. We've got fellow Bitcoiner and pleb HoDling Erik joining us. Erik, you and I have known each other for a very long time. You're definitely one of my favorite people in Bitcoin. I'm super glad that we actually got to meet at the Bitcoin conference in 2022. That was one of the very few times that I left my house to see the sun. And it was wonderful. It was very cool. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing in Bitcoin. You shared with me your website recently, the rsmc.tech website. And so, yeah, tell the viewers what it is that you do.
Thank you very much, Phil. Again, thanks for having me, and thanks for the intro. Likewise, as you said, we know us very long, and it's great that this is happening. So at RSMC, me and my business partner, basically we're 3 people right now. It's just me coding and another developer, and then my co-founder, the artist, Young GT, or Tommy, as you know him. And what we're doing at RSMC is basically enabling individuals that want to use Bitcoin to use Bitcoin. We want to enable companies to do the same. And sometimes there's just this barrier of entrance, and we want to make that very easy. We want to onboard people very easy. We believe every SAT, every customer, everyone in Bitcoin is an individual, and we believe everybody deserves to be promoted the way they want to, and to use Bitcoin the way they want to, because in the end, for us and for hyper Bitcoinization, it only matters that everybody is on it and everybody is off of zero.
If I can ask the first question, I would argue that there are no SATs, there are only UTXOs. What do you say to that?
You're very welcome to believe that, is what I say to that. That's exactly what I mean, right? I just think that you should totally think what you want to think and do what you want to do. And if you want to come up with a website that accepts Bitcoin as a means of payment, then you can hire us. And if you believe that SATs exist and UTXOs don't, then we are happy to onboard everyone to Bitcoin, And I personally just don't just don't see a difference, you know, can say you're wrong.
So you and I have had a few discussions recently, right? Because as you know, I spend a lot of time on Twitter just dumping on stuff like ordinals. And so you and I have gone back and forth about this. So what's your take on on ordinals? Like, do you think, right, because you and I are both collectors, we've had these discussions before, people, it's not a surprise, people know that I collect 80s toys and 90s toys, and I like stuff like Transformers and shit like that. So but the thing is that I don't collect them because I think they're going to be worth something. I collect them because I like seeing them, and to me, seeing them and having them is what gives me the value, right? Like,
right, physical art pieces.
Yeah, exactly. Like for me, like that's what that is. It's nostalgia. So what's your take on that? Because as you know my position. When people shill these things as investment vehicles or digital assets, this is where I start to be like, look, you're being disingenuous. Anyways, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I could totally agree with this and share the opinion there and say, like, you shouldn't promote JPEG as an investment somehow, right? It's the same question, like, do you only buy a piece of physical art because you believe it's going up in value? And you say no. And so the same thing about some stuff like the Bitcoin frogs, like, did everybody engage in minting this stupid JPEG or ordinal via the Lightning Network just because they believed it's going to be worth more? You know, and it started back in March, for example. It's now one of the biggest things in ordinals. That's why I'm mentioning it. So I can't say that about everyone, you know, just like I can't say about everyone they're buying Bitcoin to self-custody it, right? Like it's such a nuanced thing, you know, and we just need to like introduce this nuance, I think, because otherwise we're just like cannibalizing as Bitcoin maxis, and it's like all that matters to me is in the end people have Bitcoin in their wallets.
And do they have UTXOs in their wallets or sats in their wallets?
UTXOs.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's why I'm always saying I'm more an ordinal guy than a counterparty guy, because I like to have a UTXO, you know.
So then you're more of an inscription guy because ordinals are just a third party thing.
Yeah, like yeah, you could.
See, this is where it gets all into the weeds, right? Like this is
it's a protocol on top of a protocol, and there can be so many, right? The stupid bitmap thing, the stupid BRC20 thing. Like, should you invest in these things? No. If you want to own this thing, you can buy it, right? Like I'm not dictating anyone like what an honest and what a dishonest transaction is, or what how to use your Bitcoin or not. Like I don't think you sending a Bitcoin to cold storage as a transaction should be worth more than somebody minting a JPEG when that person that's minted a JPEG is paying a higher fee.
I think this is a very good point, and actually, I spoke to Reendal about this week after you know the wizard guys bought him off, and I was asking like essentially why is the mempool clogged? Why are there so many BRC20 issuance? And it comes down to the ease of use of the technology. The reason the mempool is so clogged is because it's easy to mint tokens, easy to shitcoin on Bitcoin using BRC20, and so therefore lots and lots of people are doing it in that way. There are more efficient ways for these things to be done, but they're less user friendly, and this was, I don't know, a bit of a learning point for me. And I thought, okay, look, we can sit around and complain about the mempool being clogged. We can sit around and complain about shitcoins, but there needs to sometimes pain is the driver of technological innovation. It's the driver of increased efficiency, and really what this what the mempool fees right now are showing is that in general, transactions need to be batched better, right? Exchanges do it. but individuals don't have that same capacity, certainly not the less technical ones, whether that's for true monetary transactions or for a bunch of bullshit, as far as I'm concerned. But I agree with your position of, like, if you're paying the fee, the fee market is an open fee market, and that's a good thing. If you don't like it, then you better be paying more. I've always been of the opinion that you shouldn't have a bunch of small UTXOs because, they're going to be dust one day. Well, this accelerates that sort of thinking. And to those exchanges that are suggesting people do, DCA as individual UTXOs, I think that's really, really bad advice from the exchanges. Like, should you be leaving coins on an exchange? No, but should you do you want to have like a bunch of, I don't know, 50,000, 100,000 UTXOs? Probably not. So this difficult moment in time is forcing some technological innovation, and that's a good thing.
I totally agree.
All right, so necessity is definitely the mother of all innovation. I agree. The other point about the fees, right, that Erik, that you made, look, I don't have an issue, right? If somebody wants to make a transaction, again, this is supposed to be an open system. We are supposed to be, as Bitcoiners, right? We're essentially, this is open, right? This is an open system. Anybody can join, anybody can leave whenever they want. And the reality is that if somebody can build something like this, I may not agree with it, right? I may not think that, like, for me, it's not correct, but the system allows it, right? The system allows it. And if we are really to be these proponents of freedom and freedom of speech and all this stuff, then, hey, it's like, you have the right to do this. I have the right to disagree with it and comment on it. But I think what's really important is that neither of us try to censor each other. And I think that that's where the problem occurs, because we do have people that are on one side, talking about freedom, and then on the other side saying, censor this because it's garbage.
I'd go further, though. I'd say censoring by individual pools is a free market decision, and I totally support that. If hashers, and this is a good, I saw a BTC Illustrated post this week. There's a difference between miners and hashers, right?
Miners.
If you're just contributing hash to a pool and you're not doing your own block template and a bunch of other stuff, you're not a miner, right? You're a hasher. You're some drone worker, essentially, and you have a choice as a hasher as to where you want to direct your hash. If you want to be a solo miner and have your own block templates and include the transactions you want to and not include the transactions you don't want to, then that's your right. But if you're just a hasher, then you got to point your hash at the pool that you think is either going to be doing it in the way you want or that's going to be making you the most money, and that's your choice. Absolutely.
Very well said. So, Erik, going back to RSMC. So I saw you guys have a store. So tell me about what you guys like. What do you plan on carrying there? Are you gonna have you gonna do the stickers, the T-shirts kind of thing, or is this to showcase different Bitcoiners art? And also, is there going to be physical art? Because although I am not an ordinals enjoyer, I do like my collectibles and my swag, and I don't mind paying for that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the store on the website as it is right now is more a placeholder. We're gonna have some merchandise, and we are already working on it. But we wanted to create more high quality streetwear than the normal Gildan or whatever kind of blank. So we're trying to source everything in Tennessee. So in the meantime, we're developing software ourselves. We have been concluding an auction on rsmc.tech, which was about a physical painting, the end fiat painting. That's a physical, and we kind of use that to build out our own auctioning software, which is coming out next year, Q2. So I can't say too much about it, but we're gonna be
like a kind of scarcity competitor, that sort of idea.
That I think, that idea, yes.
That's always a good thing. I think more competition in any market is always a good thing.
Yeah, we also think this, like we see us more as friends in that market, because there are just so many artists, right? Like Bitcoin becomes more popular, there are more artists that go into it, and when we are in hyper Bitcoinization, and all art is Bitcoin art, so going this direction.
And also, the more competition there is for these sort of platforms, often the better the artists do, right? If there's only one auction site, they can take 30% or whatever it is. If there's lots and lots of sites, then that number starts approach not cost, but it'll come down, and more money will be going to the artists, and that's a good thing.
Yes, that's exactly what we're thinking. That's why it's so great that my co-founder is an artist. We're just developing our own tool because of what we experienced in the market.
Again, like that's absolutely beautiful, right? Another example, that necessity is the mother of all innovation, right? Like you see something and you're like, hey, we've got this experience. We're going to build something that we think is missing that should be put here. So that's absolutely awesome. All right.
Are you guys getting involved? Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Are you guys getting involved with Nostr at all as well? Or is that something you're not dealing with for now?
I think Nostr is currently our idea for all account management. We don't want to like develop a backend and keep customers' identities hostage and emails connected to Bitcoin addresses and whatnot. We think like everybody should own their data. So Nostr is something we build on. Yes.
Very cool. Very cool. I also saw something about on the website about RGB and Cashew as well. I'm really not familiar with Cashew and RGB. I was in the Telegram group for a little while trying to understand it, right? The colored coins, I believe it is, or am I mixing that up? No, I think the colored coins.
I think colored coins is like, I would think colored coins like an old thing, like the BSQ on BISC and what XCP is on Counterparty and stuff. I think RGB is more also Lightning enabled assets, right? And other things than just art. Like there are RGB NFTs as much as I know, or as far as I know. And there are like all these other assets and schemas and smart contracts that you can now like use Bitcoin and Lightning for. I forget the wallet name. Bitmask is a Bitmask. You can try out to create an asset and all that stuff. And it seems to be, it's what Jaco Muzuko develops. So yeah, we are definitely trying to stay on top with all these protocols and see what comes out of it, right? And like try to use it ourselves, because we felt there's a big issue in whenever there's a new technology announced from that point on until it touches the market. And then there's first the cypherpunk phase, right? Like some ordinal guys were minting ordinals in January when the protocol was barely out there. And we're just, trying to keep an open mind and open eyes for whatever comes next. I mean, like you said, ordinals is a protocol, like there's going to be more protocols. And while a lot of them will be garbage, who knows what comes out of it? What's the next thing? I don't know.
Back to the point I made earlier about the fee market. I think if more of these assets move to different layers, then that's good for the mempool, right? That's good for good use of the Bitcoin transactions.
Look, the grifters are always going to be there. I actually did a clip today about this. Okay, some ridiculous thing called botanics or something like that essentially is taking ordinals and then wrapping them and putting them like on Polygon or something like just some total crap. So look, at the end of the day, right? Like I think that personally, I believe that it costs more. It costs more money, right? It's a bigger investment to create something in Bitcoin space than it does to create something in the shitcoin space. And I think that a lot of these shitcoin grifters have figured out or are beginning to figure out, hey, wait a second, if we can make people think that this valuable thing comes over here, then we can make a whole lot more with a whole lot less. So it's literally just rinsing and repeating the same shit they did with ICOs.
I think something
just
like
a different form.
Maybe 10 shitcoin chains have now implemented ordinals on top or something like that. But it's that direction, right? It was on Bitcoin first, and then.
But if you read how they do it, okay, it's always the same thing. You deposit your ordinal onto their platform and your BTC, and then they and then they wrap it and give you this new asset that's like, you just took my Bitcoin. And now on top of that, you took the ordinal. So I don't get it. I don't get how people fall for this crap. Anyways, it's absolutely brutal. Okay, Erik, where do people find you? How do they reach you? All that good stuff.
I'm all over Twitter, BTC Viking or HoDling Erik. Find me there. On Nostra as well. Like, find me on Twitter. Find my public key. And yeah, other than that, like, follow rsmc.tech. We're like updating the website, have Twitter and stuff. So we're developing a few tools coming out next year. And yeah, I hope it's going to be exciting for everyone.
Cool. All right, man. That's absolutely awesome. We are going to put that in the show notes. Guys, this wraps up the Fireside Chat. We are going to move it on over to REKT.
Welcome back to REKT, sponsored by Represent. Represent are a Bitcoin-owned clothing brand based on the west coast of the United States. They make some excellent apparel and accessories. And if you head over to representltd.com, you can see their wide range and you can get a discount using the code PlebUnderground. Once again, that's representltd.com. Welcome back to REKT. And to begin with, we're going to be looking at a clip where a very rich man tells potential advertisers to go fuck themselves. I'm sure many of you have seen it already, but if you haven't, enjoy. And if you have, you still may well enjoy it. I loved it, to be honest.
I've watched it a few times. I don't even like Elon. But I'm like, I like him a lot more now. Saying.
But yeah. Yeah. Adopting the PlebUnderground mantra of we can't be bought if you want to try and direct the kind of things that we say, right?
And you're clarifying this now.
You have to move that window.
But there's a public perception that that was part of a apology tour, if you will. That this had been said online. There was all of the criticism. There was advertisers leaving. We talked to Bob Iger today.
I hope they stop.
You hope?
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go fuck yourself.
But
go fuck yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the...
So, yeah, Elon basically says he can't be bought, and is Twitter, is X a media organization? I guess it is, and I think it would be the world would be a better place if more media organizations told censoring sponsors to go fuck themselves. I want to jump just ahead to the end, the end of it, this clip, as to kind of why this is important.
No,
how do I feel about that?
Yeah, no, I'm asking you personally how you feel about that, because this goes. We're talking about power and influence, and
I'm saying what I care about is the reality of goodness, not the perception of it. And what I see all over the place is people who care about looking good while doing evil. Fuck them. Okay?
And you're clarifying this now.
So, gents, I'm very I'm not a huge Elon fan. Like, his Doge bullshit is a massive scam. I'm not even bothered about Tesla. I think whether your position on climate stuff, it doesn't make sense if you're going to buy a Tesla that actually kind of brings forward a bunch of carbon emissions, even if you believe that kind of stuff. But let's put that stuff to the side. Starlink's pretty good, though, actually, in fairness. But what I do like here is this point about there are people who are trying to do good, and there are people who are trying to show that they do good. And I think the fiat world selects for that second group of people. I've talked about this before, this concept called political quotient, the ability to influence others, the ability to appear a certain way. And I think the more that we have people with more money choosing to do good rather than to appear to do good, the world would be a better place. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
I totally agree. It's a great example of a guy who has fuck you money and who uses it to the greater good of society. I think that's the whole basis of the Bitcoin standard right there. Like, if you don't get taxed, if you're a free man, if you have all your money, then you're able to do good for your community. And that's what we see.
It's very well said. And, I just want to go back to this whole thing about appearing to do good. I don't know how many people know who the company Burt's Bees is. Okay, but they're essentially owned by Clorox, right? The Clorox Corporation, which is, see, this is exactly it, right? When you have money, right, you could just buy companies that will all of a sudden, in this particular case, greenwash all of your stuff, right? So it's like, hey, look, even though we produce chemicals, we do this stuff that's all natural that people, that people use all the time. And we're looking out for your best interest. Well, obviously it turns out that Burt's Bees is getting sued, and they're finding all kinds of problems and chemicals in their products, because the drive for profits is much more important. And to Elon's point, it's just about looking good, right? You get to say, hey, we're all natural, but in the meantime, people are getting freaking poisoned, okay? And people are getting these weird symptoms from using your product. So yeah, even though it may not seem Bitcoin related, this is a total fiat freaking problem. And I would say specifically, it's our incentives, right? Like, if the money wasn't so broken, maybe people wouldn't be so incentivized to essentially bend their moral compass every single time to make ends meet.
And just to show some data on the point I made earlier about doing good versus
Wait, the picture, Walter.
Appearing to do good, and the point about carbon emissions. It's only in the US and Europe where carbon emissions are really dropping, right? You look at this chart here with Greta behind it, right?
What happened to Greta?
Like, I mean, she's not aging well, I guess. I don't know. I think veganism isn't good for you. Anyway, that's very much a side point. But right, this is developing countries are still massively increasing their carbon emissions. It's only in the West where we're doing it because politicians tell us it's good to do, right? And right, the seeing to be doing something rather than actually doing something globally here.
Pretty much what I've understood is that the ESG narrative is going to have you looking like an old catcher's mitt. That's what I've understood.
Go work, go broke.
That's pretty brutal.
So up next on REKT, we're going to be looking at some shitcoiners and some and what's been going on with them this week. This is probably in part due to the ordinals stuff, but apparently OpenSea revenue in just under 2 years has gone from $387 million down to $1.9 million for the monthly revenue. So OpenSea's wrecked. Even if prominent Bitcoiners sold their equity in it before it dumped, right? Well done. Next, so Mr. Hoskinson exposing himself, as many degenerates do. I'll play the vid.
Charles, when people ask you, what business are you in, what do you say?
I used to say I print money for a living.
REKT, right? And they all want to print their own money, right? And I think they're all going to get in trouble because of this, right? We're seeing now class action lawsuits against people that promoted NFTs. Apparently, Cristiano Ronaldo is facing a $1 billion class action lawsuit. And other influencers like Wendy O says that getting ahead in life is making friends with the bad guys, even though they are bad, and then playing dumb when you get caught. Good luck with that strategy. Gentlemen, the fall of NFTs and NFT pushers, do you think there is legal risk with promoting and issuing NFTs, and I'd like Erik to maybe talk on this first, because of course now people are issuing their own tokens and NFTs on Bitcoin. Is there legal risk to doing so? What do you think?
I think it all depends on your intention. Like, as always, like whatever you do and engage with, like your intention counts. Like if Cristiano Ronaldo was promoting this NFT and he was aware of like selling something that most likely isn't worth anything, he might have not even held it. He might have just received a fiat money amount, you know, I think he should pay. Like, I think they misled people. So that's no go. Like you told people to invest in this and had no regards to how it works, then you didn't do your homework, right? I mean, like, you can't go out and promote just anything and people drinking cockroach poison or whatever, you know, and like just be fine with it and have no consequences. That doesn't work.
No, you're absolutely right. And, you know, this goes back to the point that when we were talking about during the fireside chat, right? For me, like, again, I don't have a problem. Like, people can make whatever product they want as long as when they market it, they're not being disingenuous. You know, and that's the thing. When it came to NFTs, all of these people, they were being disingenuous. They, to a certain extent, I believe that they knew that it was a grift, right? Like, but they don't care because they're just getting paid, right? So it's no harm, no foul. And it's interesting, which is not true. Okay, which is not true, because I've even heard Bitcoin podcasters, Pedro, where specifically somebody came on the show, right? He had a guest on the show that was shilling some yielding platform, and his concern was that he was going to get blamed for it.
I thought you would say his concern is that they weren't already a sponsor of what Pedro felt to learn.
That's a good one. I mean, that unfortunately that's not what happened, but yeah, it's that. How sad is that? You know what I mean? It's like the concern isn't that you knowingly brought this grifter onto the show. The concern was that you're afraid you're going to get blamed. Like, yeah, you brought him onto the show. That's like,
Phil, I went to a local meetup this week.
Was that?
I went to a local meetup this week, Phil, and argue with some people because they seem to like Pedro. They don't care that he shills yield products, that he shills custodian products, and they think that people, should have the ability, the free market decision to choose to use these services or not. Now, whilst I respect that position of like, yeah, you do what you want with your money, I think it's wrong and unethical to have these kinds of sponsors for shows when you are being some sort of trusted kind of character for people, when you are, trying to quote unquote educate people, but then you're also slipping in things that don't align with Bitcoin's ethos. Yeah,
I agree.
What are you going to do?
I absolutely agree. I mean, look, fiat money essentially incentivizes bankrupt morals and bankrupt ethics, right? Like that. This is what we see. This is exactly what it is.
And the time theft of people drives them to outsource their critical thinking and outsource their decision making. This is a symptom of the time theft due to fear. Now, for my last link for today's section on REKT, we have one of these time thieves, the Bank of England, who are now in their 25th year of independence from the government, is apparently at risk of going broke and wants a bailout from the taxpayer and the ability to raise taxes all of its own. What now? What? I mean, this doesn't make any sense to me, but as per usual, it's one rule for the political elites and another rule for everyone else. And there's going to be more and more of this sort of thing happening, right?
Look, Walton, if you're not willing, if you're not willing to do what it takes for the common good, right? The common good, then you're just an enemy. This is for the common good. Clearly, the Bank of England is too big to fail, right? And 100%, regardless of the ridiculous mistakes that they've made, you, right, as a taxpayer, you should bear that burden, right? And it's a privilege. It's a privilege to bear that burden, because of everything your country stands for, right? It's not just you. This is the same bullshit in every country. Yeah, exactly. We're all in it together. This is one big kumbaya, right? Where we're just getting broker and they're getting more power, and it's like that's the way it's meant to be. Erik, what are your thoughts?
It's definitely broken. It's definitely broken. The incentives are misaligned. So yeah, it all shouldn't be, and it's all about to break. And we all who are indoctrinated enough can see it, I guess.
Just think of the hypocritical, like I always think about this, right? Like, so an individual person, right, like wouldn't want to have to pay for somebody else's mistakes, a complete stranger, right? But yet somehow, right, a person joins this corporation, right, this business, this entity, and somehow it's okay at that point that everyone pays for their mistake, even though on an individual level you would not want that. The mental gymnastics that we do as humans to justify this absolutely wretched, stupid behavior is so, I don't know. I don't get it. I just don't get it. How do people sleep at night? And then somebody will tell you very well on a very expensive mattress with a lot of expensive things and da.
Are you not a patriot, Phil? Don't you care about your country? Don't you care about your fellow man? These are the kind of psyops that many people, including some Bitcoiners, will say to other people, right? They're do you not care about other people? Yeah, I do. But what enables me to actually do things for them is for me to have more of my money and more of my time and not have that stolen from me, right? Like, charity starts at home. I think the reason why we don't have proper support for the people that need it is because so much is stolen from people. So much time is stolen from people, right? I'm not saying don't help disabled people. I'm saying those people could be helped by their family, by their community, if there were communities, if people didn't have to go work hours away to make a living wage for where they live. Like, if there weren't all these factors that drive the dissolution of society and the degradation of it, it's a crazy time we're in, and I think it's gonna get worse before it gets better, unfortunately.
Very well said. Hey, look, the traps are not there by mistake. Okay, the traps are not there by mistake. They are there by design. All right, guys, that wraps up REKT, and we are gonna move it on over to the Hopium.
The Hopium.
I don't think anybody had this on their bingo card. Ever. I just don't think so. But this was a very interesting tweet that happened on the 28th. Wei Dai, for the people who don't know who Wei Dai is, he is one of the cypherpunks / coders that is cited in the white paper, the Bitcoin white paper. So let's dive into this, because I gotta tell you, just when you thought CSW couldn't get wrecked
Phil,
any harder.
That's inaccurate. I'm sorry. I think Adam Back is the only one that's actually cited in the paper. But I think Wei Dai contributed to a previous technology that enabled Bitcoin or something like that.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll check it out. But anyways, let's dive into it. I'm relatively new to participating on Twitter X. So if anyone has tips, suggestions, critiques on what I'm doing, please let me know. And this is funny, right? Because right away, Arthur Van Pelt, for the people who don't know, he was the account My Legacy Kit. If that account, I think, got suspended. Anyways, you want to follow Arthur Van Pelt if you want to keep up with everything and anything CSW. So he responds back and goes, I would be interested in your opinion about serial forging thief Craig Wright, an individual among several handfuls of these cosplaying con men who is claiming to be Satoshi Nakamoto. Is he? And Wei Dai writes back and goes, haven't looked at all the evidence, court cases closely, but from what I've seen, it seems pretty unlikely that he's Satoshi. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, like that whole entire train wreck is just falling apart before our eyes. It's not like they really needed this guy showing up out of the woodwork to do this, but honestly, I just think this is so serendipitous. It totally is. Anyways, let's move on to the next one. Here we go, guys. This is definitely part of Then They Fight You, but this is also Hopium, right? Because this goes back to the whole financialization. See, I'm sure that the powers that be have figured out that the Crapto bubble, the next one, the one that is going to be led by the legacy finance, they're going to be able to print so much more money, okay, because of this. So this is a tool. Okay, this is a tool. And anyways, let's look at this tweet from Alchemy Crypto. Treasury has given Congress 4 more powers to crack down on illicit activity in crypto. See the way that that's worded, right? So new crypto financial institution category under BSA, authority to sanction notes and chains, tools to sever crypto operations from US, direct authority over all USD stablecoins. Now, if you don't understand and you're looking at this and you're saying, Phil, what are you talking about? They're dismantling it. No. They are not dismantling it. They are laying the framework. They're laying the framework. They're letting you know what the rules are going to be, and they're letting you know how they're going to control it because it's here and it's here to stay. I don't give a shit about crapto. It doesn't matter. It's all garbage. It's all a grift. I've said it a million times in vaporware, but guess what? The people that understand that they can capitalize off of human stupidity and greed and naivety, hey, they're not going to take this opportunity. Anyways, before we get into the rest of the Hopium, what are your thoughts on all this? Walton, we'll start with you.
I did read. Do you mind resharing the screen?
Oh yeah,
I thought it was funny that the guy's bio was kind of almost in opposition to this position he's sharing. He says, "Crypto realist, maxi ideology rarely survives contact with economic pragmatism, but blockchain will change finance." So like in the traditional media, people are saying one thing and they're believing another. But if you thought this was a surprise that the U.S. government weren't going to try and assert authority over all dollars, you're an idiot, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Like these things were coming. As our friend Mark Goodwin, friend of the show, likes to say, the stablecoin wars are coming. I think the US have kind of already picked a winner. One that recently I think has made a deal with Japan as well. But we'll see, right? We'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Eric, what are your thoughts on this? And again, you don't have to agree with me. I could be totally wrong. Doesn't matter. We're just speculating.
No, I totally agree about this. It's they were always to step in. The bureaucrats are just creeping slowly, as always, but everything is happening like it was like Bitcoin has been saying for years and seeing for years.
Absolutely. Okay, let's dive into the big part of the Hopium here because, guys, this week there was a major announcement. There was a lot of noise made, right, from Jack Dorsey and Bitcoin Core developer Luke Dash Jr. That's right. We're going to talk about Ocean. I got a lot of shit. For not being enough of a cheerleader this week. So Phil down hard. Okay, so Phil down hard. Anyways, okay, before we get into that, let's take a look at some other Hopium quick. That's right. This is going to lead to our Ocean discussion. Okay, so first, there's the BitAxe. Yes, I bought one of these. I actually got it. That was actually a Christmas present that I got to open early. And I mean, so far this thing is pretty cool. I'm not trying to sell it. We're not sponsored by them. Okay, mine does anywhere between 3 to 700 gigahashes per second. I haven't reached 100 million best difficulty yet, but I'm really close. I've gotten to 95. Anyways, this is a solo miner. And in my case, I think there's 2 pools right now that allow solo mining. I could be wrong, but CK pool and another one that I'm not remembering. But yes, that's right. For $250, you could be hashing to Walton's point from before, right? There's miners and there's hashers. Well, you could be hashing. But also, besides this, right, it all seems if you ask me, it all seems very peculiar, okay? So you've got the BitAxe Ultra. Then there was this announcement today from FutureBit, and I am actually pretty interested in this, introducing the Apollo 2. The home miner revolution is here. So you've got Crypto Cloaks making those space heater cases and stuff like that, right? So that all of a sudden your miners can just become beautiful furniture. Now, you've got the little mini BitAxe, okay? We've got the Nerd Miner, okay, which does about 55 kilohashes. Walton and I were talking about this before, so that's really a learning tool. I'm not sure but anyways, I don't want to tell anybody that they're going to find a block with that device. Not that I think I could find one with the BitAxe either. I'm just saying, but I will give it. Yeah. Do
you mind going back, Phil? That I just thought I'd look up because I want to know about the numbers on the BitAxe. It highlights this point about the efficiency. It says 22 joules per terahash. Is that right? Or 20? Is that it?
I think so.
That's less than a Watts Miner M30. It's less than an Antminer S19 Pro. The only one that I think is more efficient is an S19 XP that does 21 joules per terahash. So because also it's to me this is the wrong way around. Like actually a lower number is better. Like less energy per terahash is a more efficient miner. So
exactly.
So, just to highlight this one, the BitAxe is actually more efficient than than many of the top kind of mining rigs on the market right now. Now, of course, you have the initial capital investment that you have to make back in Bitcoin, and that's a separate discussion. But this is actually surprisingly efficient when it comes to its energy per terahash. I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you.
No, absolutely, and that is a very good point. And all right, going back to the future bit. So here we go, the Apollo 2, the home miner revolution. So here we go, built-in Stratum solo pool. Okay, you've got, what is that, 5nm ASICs. You've got 6 to 10 terahashes per second as a hash rate. I obviously don't know yet because, you know, like we'll see when in the real world. I mean, I'm assuming they got that off of their testing numbers. And as low as 28 watts per terahash, 2 to 400 watts of power, starting at $800. I mean, really? That's not bad. I got to be honest, like it's not that bad. It all depends on what it's going to cost per month, because you see the BitAxe costs about $5 to $7 per month of electricity depending on your region, which is very little, right? So you can just sit there and let that thing run forever. I'm most likely going to end up getting one of these things. So we'll see. But for now, I'm pretending and I'm saying, no, I'm not doing it. But who knows? I always FOMO myself into these things. It's pretty bad. Like I did, even like with the Nerd Miner, right? I FOMO'd myself into the Nerd Miner, and I swear to you, the next week I saw the BitAxe, a link for the BitAxe. And I'm like, God damn it.
I did like Mr. Hoddle's comment on this, that at 400 watts, that's quiet enough that his wife won't know about it, which I thought is a kind of funny one, right? These industrial mining rigs that are doing like 2,000-3,000 watts, they're really noisy, but like a few hundred watts probably isn't that loud, and maybe is a bit more friendly for home mining.
So why is this Hopium, right? Before we get into Ocean, this is Hopium because a lot of the criticisms that you end up hearing from people is that, well, it's, you know, mining is just completely, it's just outside of the average person's capability. So don't get me wrong, right? These aren't massive devices, but this is the type of stuff, this is how it starts, right? This is exactly how it works. So for me, yeah, I do think this is Hopium because I think that we are going to get increasingly more efficient devices, okay? And not that this has anything to do necessarily with miners, but just to give people some perspective, when I first got out of tech school and there were USB keys, right? You were spending $100 on a 1 gig key. Actually, you were spending about $115 on a gig. So just think about that. Okay. Now today.
Wait, do you mean it 1 gigahash per second?
No, it's just like 1 gig of memory. Right?
Oh,
like,
sorry. Okay,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying it's not necessarily related to this, but it is, because now at this point, you know, you've essentially got these SSD drives, okay, and these these MVSD drives. Anyways, the chips are freaking tiny, and they hold, like, we're not even talking about 1 gig. You're talking about 3 terabytes of data. So the idea.
I remember when my dad bought a USB stick that was like, I want to say it was like a couple $100 at the time. This is probably 20 years ago, and it had like 128 megabytes,
Boom.
right? But it was
that's
like 100 floppy disks. That's a lot, right? At the time, and now you can get, you know, an SD card or a USB stick that's I don't know, 100 gigabytes or more, right?
Exactly. That is exactly it. So the idea that this technology isn't going to become more and more accessible, and the reason why this is Hopium is because also it does start to address the decentralization of mining, right? If you can have more people solo mining, well, all of a sudden right? Like that kind of starts to deteriorate the perceived attack vector from the mining pools. Anyways, speaking of mining pools, guys, speaking of mining pools, this week, here we go.
Is that the ocean?
That's the ocean. Bitcoin mining as it was meant to be. And here is the message from Luke Dash Jr. And I made a mistake of taking a screenshot of this and questioning it. And then Twitter handed me my ass. So here we go. Bitcoin is no longer censorship resistant, and mining centralization endangers its security too. It's time to fix that. Now, I do appreciate another mining pool, right? Walton alluded before to the fact, hey, more competition is better. Nothing wrong with that. I don't know if I appreciate the false narrative. To me, it's a false narrative that Bitcoin isn't censorship resistant. I think that that's kind of disingenuous and just kind of creating drama for nothing, a little bit of FUD for nothing. Miner centralization, though, is actually an issue that people talk about, and that is something that people are, and companies, for lack of a better term, are trying to address. So even though I appreciate what's going on, I think that there was just a little bit too much cheerleading, and it's kind of sad. Not gonna lie, it's kind of sad that people just want to cheerlead. Like your first thing should be digging in and looking at the information and looking what they offer. Like the first thing I did when I opened that is when I looked at that website, I went down to their FAQ and I read through the whole FAQ, because really the whole point is that we should be trying to educate ourselves on these offerings instead of just running out into the street and cheerleading for them immediately. I get it, right? The big names, the buzz, I get it. But like, we're not helping anybody by just running out there and cheerleading for everything. Anyways, I know I'm a downer. Eric, what are your thoughts before we go to Walton on this?
I think congrats to Luke and the people who have been involved with this, right? Like you said, like it's great to see another pool coming up. And I know Luke, I know that he has his own ideas about Bitcoin, and like he's a good person as much as I can say. I just really think this is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like you don't want something to happen and then you do it yourself. And now we have people who are having a pool that censors certain transactions and forgoes profit or revenue, which is sad to see.
Yeah, the irony of his saying it's not censorship resistant, that then this makes it more censorship resistant, but then they're censoring. That doesn't make sense. There's been a bunch of like mismarketing. Apparently, so he had an old pool called is it Allegius? I'm not sure how you pronounce it. Something like that.
I know. I called it Allegius
anyway,
as well.
Apparently, on Ocean's website, they were showing the blocks mined by Allegius as if they were blocks that have been mined by Ocean. That's not very good. Saying that they're gonna do censorship of inscriptions or ordinals and then not doing it. Like just I don't think it's ever good when Bitcoiners say one thing and do another. Is more competition good? Yes. I was more excited about demand pool though, which actually seems to, I think it's someone called Bit Entrepreneur. I can't remember the guy's name, but essentially, well, back to this conversation about miners versus hashers. Another mining pool, to me is another like centralized thing. My understanding is with demand pool, rather than there being a centralized template for mining, all of the individual contributors can do their own block templates. And to me, that sounds a bit more decentralized.
Yeah, the block template thing, I had to read up on that. Obviously, like to familiarize myself with it, and I actually found a really interesting post on Reddit from Mercadamus or something like that. Anyways, he's
Merch. He's like Merch and Merce's his Twitter handle, something like that. Yeah.
You know who he is. Yeah. So I mean, look, he's a coder and very knowledgeable, and I find very much able to explain a lot of things, and to a certain extent, like. He pointed out that, hey, number one, obviously the block template isn't the same all across the network, right? It's they don't have to be the same. They don't actually have to match. But the other piece is that supposedly the block that is mined, right, in the end, if I understood correctly, doesn't actually follow the entire block template entirely. So it essentially, it means that even if you have a block template, it doesn't mean that things are set in stone. Here we go. The mining versus hashing. Yep.
I learned something with this graphic. I liked it, that there are, if you're a miner, it's much more than just contributing hash. You have to be running a full node. You have to be creating block templates and then deciding which transactions you're including it or excluding from it. I think some of that is automated based on how you create the template. There's a bit more to it than just hashing. And I think the more decentralized mining is, that's a good thing. Right now, there is decentralized hashing, and hashers can switch which pools they're contributing to. But I think if you only have, 10 people or 10 pools creating block templates, then that is a centralized. Maybe you call it a point of failure, but it is something that is centralized, and there are some pools that are choosing to censor certain transactions, ones that aren't OFAC compliant, essentially, cucking to states on some of these things. Yeah,
it's a slippery slope. I mean, it definitely is, So that OFAC compliant stuff, though, that's pretty funny. So even though they've quote unquote censored transactions, other pools have taken those. Other miners were able to mine those transactions. So the whole idea that somebody's transactions have actually been censored on Bitcoin, again, this goes back to that quote on the Ocean XYZ site. I just think it's hype marketing, So this wraps up the episode of Pleb Underground. But before we go, give a big shout out to Erik. Erik, one more time, where do the listeners and viewers find you?
You can find me on Twitter. Like, my handle is BtcViking or HoDling Erik. Other than that, rsmc.tech. Follow us there. Let's see what we're doing and building. Thank you guys for having me. It was an awesome episode. Absolutely awesome. All right, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check us out on our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. If you want to stream us sats, check us out on fountain.fm. You can stream us sats through Breeze. Walton. Oh, wait, before we finish this one out, guys, as always, we remind you, stay sovereign. Don't forget to be self-sovereign. Don't forget to make sure that you manage your own keys. We've got links for you in the show notes to help you stay sovereign and to make sure that you're taking personal responsibility of your Bitcoin. Walton, how do we wrap this one up?
Fuckshitcoins.com. Please like and subscribe. We'll see you next week.
Catch y'all next week. Peace.
More toxic than the most toxic Bitcoin maxi ever. They said he's more toxic than the most toxic Bitcoin maxi ever.